All right. I wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Wyatt Cmar, MPTI class of 2020. Right now, we're in a 30-minute masterclass on creative entrepreneurial thinking with Femke. We're digging into the mindset of creating your own job. And I would like to introduce the speaker, Femke. She is a Grammy-winning producer, songwriter, and musician, and most important of all, a Berklee graduate. Who later got her master's in commercial music at Cal State University in Los Angeles. She's arranged, programmed, and orchestrated music with Hans Zimmer's prestigious Control Studios. And after that, moved to Nashville to pursue her passion of producing, writing with recording artists. She started her indie label LV Music to help the artists that she was developing. And within the first 3 years, she was able to get her artists a combined 60 million streams. I've actually had the chance to see her before, and I'm super excited to hear what she has to say now. And just on the format, super quickly, there's a Q&A, there's a question box on the side, and there's also a chat. Feel free to hit up the chat, but we're gonna have 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. So put your questions there, and I can call you up on stage when that comes. So without further ado, Femke.
Thank you. So good to be here, guys. I'm really excited to it's 30 minutes, so I'm going to go really quick through a couple of things, and feel free to drop anything on the chat. I can see everything that you're typing. Hi, Pablo and Tobias and Catalina and Magdalena and everybody. I made a quick PDF file for you guys. I'm dropping it in the chat now. It's a link to Dropbox, and you can kind of read along with the things I'm saying. So basically what I want to do, and I think what's on everybody's mind, is how can we, in this, especially now in this time of COVID, how can we grow our businesses when we don't even know if there's going to be a business or a music industry or all those things. There's a lot of questions that everybody has. And so I want to take these 30 minutes to find a way and create a reassurance in that just because of COVID, the industry has changed so much over the last couple of years that I feel things as job security have not existed for a really long time. So instead of being worried about it, I think it's a really great opportunity for you to focus on creating your own job and creating your own vision. And I created a little program where with three steps and a couple of things. So if you open up that PDF file, you can look at it with me. And with the idea that all good things come in 3, I divided your process of entrepreneurship in 3 points. So development, distribution, and marketing. So I'm just going to jump right in and kind of start shooting these things at you. And again, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat window. So the whole thought is, you used to think of life as you go to school. That's the first process. You educate yourself. The second process is you find yourself a great job and you find yourself job security. And then when you've done all those things, you can focus on your life. Now, all these things are jumbled up. And so they're all kind of in different places. And the guarantee of, there's no more guarantee. So an education doesn't guarantee a job doesn't guarantee security doesn't guarantee a great life. So what I've been thinking is, if you combine them all together and do them all at the same time and divide your attention equally, I think you could actually get more done. So the first part is development. So personal development is very important. So you will always want to educate yourself. In every process in life, you want to focus on educating yourself, not just through a school program, but through other things that you feel you need to enrich yourself with. So if you went to school to study guitar and you want to be a guitar player, now is the time to study recording, learn how to record yourself, learn how to make your own studio, learn how to find new clients. So you always have to keep educating yourself. That process never stops. The next part is professional development. So through your development in education and learning, you also want to learn what are your rights as a songwriter, as a creator. What is the basic legal implications for a production agreement, or you know, a master's, what are the master rights of a composition? All those things you want to, professional development, you want to keep learning. That process also never stops. Relationships never stop. You always want to focus on creating new relationships, whether it's through friendships, networking, school, all these things. Like, you want to make sure that you always develop relationships. And the last one is research, which is a really important one. I find it super important to always think about the things, the place where you could go, and you want to research how to get there. So you might focus on, let's use the example of the guitar player. You might want to focus on your guitar career, but at some point you do want to figure out how to start a home studio. So researching now is a really great, it creates less stress in the future. So thinking about possible things in the future that you might encounter and researching how to get there, how you would deal with those things, will really help you fix the anxiety process of working in your business. And development, like I said, is one of the three things that you will always have to do. And this is not just in like a work commitment, but it's in a life commitment to you. Just like you develop relationships and friendships, as a person, you develop your mindset. So development, I find key. And even for me, having now been sort of full-time in the music industry for the last 10 years, 3 years ago, I started a record label. I didn't know I was going to start a record label 5 years ago. It never came to my mind. It just a chance situation happened, and I decided to start a record label, and I learned how to develop myself into that, but it wasn't a plan. Now, moving on, I know we're in a time crunch. The next part is distribution. Distribution is intensely important. Distribution basically means, how do I distribute my product out into the world? So your product could be your songs or your masters, but your product could also be your skills, which, if you're a mix engineer, if you're a producer, you want to distribute your product. So how can you find ways to get your art and your product out into the world? And one of those things is through referrals. Which is like a very easy one. Like, your friends will say, Bob is a great producer, you have to work with him, or work with my friend so-and-so, the mix engineer. So that's a great way in distributing a product. And the other one that I find very interesting is cause and effect. I've always noticed that certain things happen when you don't expect them to happen. So you should never close yourself off for an opportunity, because they could be anywhere. You could go to a party and meet somebody who needs a songwriter or a producer. But there's many different angles to a career. For instance, just an example out of my own life, the way I got into film composition was, I wasn't necessarily aiming to become a film composer, but at the time my roommate was interning at a specific film composer, and he got sick one day, and I decided to help out, and that's how I sort of got into accidentally in the whole film composition thing. So you always have to be open for a sudden change in your process. And the next part that's really important is exclusive, non-exclusive partnerships. Something that I find really important for all you guys to know is that a lot of people are thinking, okay, I'm a songwriter. The next thing I need to do is get a publishing deal. Or if you're an artist, the next thing I need to get is a label, a major label. The problem with those things is that they are exclusive partnerships. So you're focusing yourself on only one way of distribution. Your only channel to distribute your art or your skills is through one channel. So if you really trust that channel, and you obviously have a fantastic contract, but that doesn't even guarantee the distribution of your product. You want to make sure, if you are choosing to create exclusive relationships for your distribution and for getting your product out there, that it's the right partner. Because nowadays, and because of even through COVID, I'm noticing, a lot of publishing advances are drastically going down. But a lot of companies are also offering non-exclusive partnerships because there's less risk on their end. So for instance, for film and TV, you are now able to sign more non-exclusive agreements with film and TV licensing companies. So you can get your catalog over to maybe 4 or 5 companies instead of just one. And they might not pay you a draw, but you have a much wider net to be able to distribute your products. So I find that super important for everybody to keep in mind in the process of getting your music out there, or your art out there, is make the right decisions and think about these things. And this all goes back to development. If you educate yourself on your basic rights as a songwriter, or even as a producer, for instance, let's talk about master rights. If you're a producer and you write a song with somebody, you want to agree upon your percentage of the right of the master. Let's say you're going to take 50%. You want to make sure that you document that 50%, and you want to make sure that it's that the other person is okay with you exploiting that 50%. And with that 50%, you can have multiple non-exclusive partners for sync licensings. So as you're seeing, the part of development and distribution is already sort of overlapping with each other. The next part is marketing. So when you look at marketing, it's basically, how do I draw attention to myself, and how do I draw attention to my art? And I think one thing to know is that your art is more than just what you, if your art, your presence and your preparedness, those 3 things is what you're trying to sell. So just putting your art out there on the massive World Wide Web is not necessarily going to make a difference, even if your art is the best thing anybody has ever heard or seen. It's really important, especially now, for people to know who is behind the art. So you want to be more than just your project. You want to be product. You want to be a person. And a lot of times, what I've been teaching my artists is focus on the rule of 5. So out of those 5 things, only 2 or 3 can be about your art, and the other things have to be about something completely different, something that you're passionate about, and attract an audience through those different channels, and be creative in that audience. So are a songwriter, you might want to talk about your love of coffee, and you might want to partner with coffee shops, especially now with COVID, and do online performances or offer an exclusive MP3 for these specific coffee shops. And so that way you get like a new audience that would not have had the opportunity to hear about you before, and you're reaching an audience of a completely different product. And that cross-pollination will help you gain fans, gain attention. And this is not just for artists, this is for producers too. It's really important for producers to be a person, and for mix engineers too. People want to work with a person. They want to know if you're either in the room together, they want to know if you're a good person to hang out with. And now with this strange COVID situation, they want to know that you're a person who responds well to emails, a person who's friendly, a person that they can pick the phone up and talk to you about their music that's so close to their heart. So it's really important to show who you are. And another thing that's really important for you is to be able to reach out to people. Imagine that you're in a coffee shop somewhere or in a bar, and you're all by yourself and you have to walk up to a stranger. A lot of people find that very uncomfortable, including myself. That's a weird thing to do. But online, it's intensely easy to send a message to somebody and to reach out to a person in a different field or somebody that you want to work with, a future collaborator, whether you get a reply or not is not necessarily important, and it's not going to kill your soul. It's not like somebody turns around, turns their back to you and walks out of the bar. It doesn't matter if somebody doesn't reply to your DM, you know, it's not such a big deal. So it's much easier for you to reach out. So make sure you reach out to people that you might feel awkward reaching out to. They might just look at their messages and they might need somebody like you. And if anything, it's just a way to pop up on somebody's radar, which also findability is really important. Be able to be found, be able, you know, if somebody sends you an email, you want to make sure that you reply in a timely fashion. You want to make sure you pick up the phone. You want to make sure these are dumb things, but things like hashtags or those kind of things are really important. Have a website, have all your social media, have an Instagram, a TikTok, a Twitter, whatever thing works for you, but be able to be found. So those three things, those three big topics, development, distribution, and marketing, combined together, create a new way of entrepreneurship. And it's a much easier way to look at your day in this particular way too. So for instance, by dividing each three equally, I think it's really easy for you when you get up in the morning to focus a part of your day on your development and be really conscious about it. So do you want to learn something today? Do you want to reach out to people and work on your relationships today? Do you want to research a future endeavor that you've been thinking about? Take the time for development every single day. Take the time for distribution every single day. Send some emails about your product to people. Send some emails to your friends and say, do you know anybody that's looking for a mix engineer or producer? I'm doing a one-time deal where I'm dropping my rates 20%. Do you want to come and do you want to let your friends know that I'm doing that? Make sure you spend an equal amount of time on your distribution, and then after that, go on your socials and market yourself. Reach out, reply to messages, be authentic, be your true self. And those three things combined will really help you create that future job that you want. And it creates a flexibility because by researching at this point in time and developing yourself, you are able to steer into a different direction at any point. So if somebody gives you a call tomorrow and says, I want you to do all the music for a Chinese hip hop show, you having listened to a lot of hip hop lately or working on your development or listening to New Music Friday playlists for a while, are more prepared to get into that. You having read legal documents and researched your rights for licensing, you have already prepared yourself for that. You distributing your music has probably created this opportunity right now. So it creates a flexibility. And I know I have 2 more minutes, so one more thing before questions, but one more thing that I really want to bring up, which I find a very positive, great thing that's happening right now, is major labels work as a really big machine. So they work on a record for a year, they put out something, it takes 3 months to market it, and then they put out the next thing, or they can choose to not put it out. But it's a very slow machine. You as an individual are able to put something out next week if you want to. You are able to change the course of your career if you find out that people really love your up-tempo songs, but your ballads don't do that well. You can steer into a different direction much faster, and you can be intensely flexible with your career. So if there's anything that I would add, it would be willing to be flexible to that list. So, okay, 1 more minute, but development, distribution, marketing, just look through the points and maybe ask yourself the question, which one of these things am I doing? And which one of these things could I work on to develop my career a little bit better? And I would love to answer some questions if you guys have any.
All right. Thank you so much. It looks like we do have some questions. I'm trying this for the first time. Tobias, it looks like you have the most upvotes. So I'm going to see if I can invite you on stage. And if I don't see you in a minute, it looks like you're getting ready. So we'll see Tobias in a moment. Depending on the internet.
Oh.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. My question was, with which difficulties do you have to cope being an artist and entrepreneur at the same time?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I have seen, that's a great question, is that you want to focus on your art more than you want to focus on the business. So if you're in like a creative process, and if you're creating a music that you really want to create, the last thing you want to do is to suddenly put on your business hat and forget about your artistry, because the artistry always lives. So what I've noticed a lot with artists is that they go in through phases of only doing one thing, only doing the art. And then they have this one album and they go out into the world and they try to sell this album. But the problem is that in the process of you creating your art, you have kind of lost the attention of your fans, you have lost the momentum. And it's not that I'm saying that an artist shouldn't spend all their time creating. It's more just the awareness of knowing that you can't, you have to sometimes reach out, and you have to, even in the smallest way possible, find a way to get your future music out there and keep talking about yourself and keep talking about the thing that you're trying to achieve. Even if you lock yourself up in your bedroom for 3 months, talk about it, write about it, show little clips, get the attention already to the product, so that once it comes out, you have built the momentum that you need and you haven't lost a huge number of fans or attention, because the internet, unfortunately, is a fickle place and people lose attention in like 5 seconds. So yeah, that would probably be my advice to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Tobias. Now I'm going to invite to the stage India. Let's see, I'm going to click the start live answer. Nope, that doesn't work. Let me try this. All right. Invite on stage. India, you should have an invitation, and it looks like you're joining now. Technology.
This is great. Aww.
Hello.
We just need some background music for that.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
So my question is that nowadays we're often told to specialize in one thing and to find our niche. I see that you have multiple skills as a singer, songwriter, producer, and composer, as you said. So how do you balance those different skill sets and projects, and how do you market yourself to people as you have so many different skill sets?
That's a great question. I actually personally think that there is no more time to just specialize yourself. This is the time to like expand your knowledge and your everything. But I do think it's really important to tailor what you're selling. So if I really want to get a job as a producer, I usually don't advertise any of the other things that I do. I really just focus on that one thing that I'm selling. And so the only way to do that is to know who I'm selling it to. So it's really important for me to know, is like, if I'm talking to an artist, I want to tell them that I'm a producer because I want to work with this artist. I don't want to tell them that I was a film composer and a songwriter and because a lot of times people get scared with the idea, like, oh, she must be spread so thin. How is she going to have time for me? And I think that kind of works with, you want to make everybody feel like they are the most important thing in the world. And that's just with relationships too. If you're in a relationship, you want to make them feel special. So the only way to make them feel special is to really just latch on to the one thing that they really need. But that doesn't stop you from promoting what you do on your Instagram or like your website. You can talk about all those things, but even when you talk about those things on your socials, you want to make sure that you compartmentalize them. So if you, don't just spend 10 posts on just your songwriting and suddenly there's like, oh, by the way, I'm also running this label, because it's, just sort of equal divide the attention to things, so people know that you're not favoring one thing over another. And they're like, well, I just went to your socials and you said you're a producer, but actually, you're just talking about your record label. Like, do you really have time for me? So I think I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice.
You're welcome.
Invite you to the stage. All right, we're joining. And Femke, would you like me to share, in the meantime, your Instagram or any? I can put that in the chat for interested individuals who'd like to keep following you. Okay. And let's see. Do we have Max coming yet? Pending invitation.
Oh, let's see. He says, read out my question. What's your question?
Oh, okay. Got it. What would you look for in a marketing team around the artist? Let's say handpicked by artist and his management.
Okay.
I can repeat that.
What would I look for? That's a tricky question. It's a tricky question because I don't generally believe in marketing teams unless, and this sounds I feel like the best marketer of the artist is the artist. So before I would even find a marketing team, I would make sure that the artist has a really clear sense of self. And once the artist can describe who they are, what they do, what they want to do, where they've been, when they sound like what they look like, when they have all those things ready, a marketing team could literally be anybody, because anybody can take on a well-rounded project and take it places. But a marketing team can't make you that. And I feel like a lot of people think that they go to a marketing company to create that for them. But all they really do is sell what you already have. So I would say the marketing doesn't matter until you have all those assets. And I know it's probably not the answer you were looking for, but I think that's probably the best way to look at things. And a lot of times I actually, I used to hire a marketing agency for my label, and I stopped doing it because the way the artists were doing it, and with a couple of little PR steps here and there, we didn't need to hire an agency anymore. And it really reduces, because it's really expensive, and it reduces the cost so much that you can spend that money on ad money, on YouTube advertisement, Instagram advertisement. And that stuff really gets you instant fans and audience and eyeballs. So I would maybe, if you're thinking of getting a marketing agent, rethink the process and reallocate that budget to something where you could spend it on something else.
And I see one last question here, and let's see. It is, how do you approach production, and how do you determine that you have a good product? Very general. So
great question. I approach production. So there's two different ways. If there's a difference between a demo and a production, I think that's the biggest thing. If you're doing a demo, you're selling a song. If you're doing a production, you're selling an artist. And I think that's the biggest difference. That's how I approach my productions, is how am I selling this artist? What is the unique aspect that I'm adding to this? What is the unique production element that is for this specific artist, that is not too crazy, that it's alienating his fan base or his audience, but it is unique for him and really represents this particular artist. So my production is the way I think about the sounds that I pick. I think about the artist having to perform those songs. Do these sound fit this artist? If it's somebody who's very authentic and very pure and very honest person in his lyrics, for instance, I would not probably not spend a ton of time doing synthesis or creating synthetic sounds. I would probably make loops based out of organic elements. I would create soundscapes based out of organic elements around that artist because it would fit their message more. And so my way of treating production is by honoring the artist and their artistry.
Thank you for that. And Femke, I actually just got notified by one of the organizers that we have a moment for another question. And if it's not too indulgent, I actually wanted to ask one myself, because you started talking about this last time I heard you, and I thought it was really interesting. Just in terms of how you structure your days, you know, you wear all these different hats. How do you approach all of these projects, all of these roles, all of using the right and the left side of the brain? How do you structure it?
I have a very intense iCalendar. And so I really, I write, it sounds terrible, but it really works for me. I write down all the blocks of things that I need to do. So my morning, the first 3 hours are always all the emails, and it's literally a block, like all my connection, all my reaching out to people, finding ways to sell the music, all the business stuff, it's all in the morning. So when that's done, whether it's 11 or 12 o'clock, whenever it is, I can let that go and turn all the stuff off and focus on a writing session or my creativity. So then the next part of the day is like I spend, 6 hours working on a production, writing a song, working with an artist. And then usually whatever happens at night is whatever needs to get done that I forgot to do. But I really try to make sure that all my business stuff is taken care of before I do my creativity, because I'm sure you can recognize this feeling, is that when you're working on something and you're finally in the moment of like creating something great and your phone starts ringing, or you realize you have 20 emails and you still have like 30 demos to do and you have to let people know that you're still working on it, that stress really doesn't help with your creativity. So compartmentalizing your day, which is kind of why I made this spreadsheet for myself, this development, distribution, marketing spreadsheet, to keep my own mind sane and to know, it's like, okay, in what am I focusing on when I'm sending these emails, and when I want to educate myself, what am I actually doing? So I can, once that block is over, I can close off those things. Because I do believe that creativity shouldn't have a checklist. So everything else should, but your creativity should be a wave that just goes, and you need to allow time for that wave to happen.
And with our last few moments, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you on that. This was super inspiring, super interesting. And we have a very urgent question that I think is a good one. Also from Max. Can we reach out to your artist development company to have a conversation? And I'll add to that. And if so, what is the best way to sort of reach out to you?
Yeah, actually, let me just, in this chat window, I'm just going to type my email, and you can just send me an email. Now, something I want to say is sometimes I might not respond right away, and feel free to like check back in. And in general, I feel like that's a really good thing to do, is when people don't respond to you, it doesn't mean that they're not interested. It just means that they had 30 emails to get to, or 50 emails that day. So it's really great to follow up and keep sort of chasing without being like a stalker, just, chase people to get an answer. So yeah, please send me your music, your songs, whatever it is that or questions, anything. I'd be happy to look at that.
All right. With that, I think that's probably all we have time for. The fun part now is I don't know how to get off stage, so I'm really hoping someone is behind the scenes and is just going to drop the curtains. But thank you so much, Femke. Really appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome.